digitization is the simplest of them. Data which exists in an analog form. Analog form could be paper form or any other form, right? Or in the registers, or in the human mind, right? So any data which exists in a human in an analog form getting converted into a digital format, right? If you put that data in Excel, if you put a data in a database, right, into Oracle or any other database you put it, right, it becomes digital data which can be manipulated, which can be used for decision-making purposes, right? So digitization is the simplest among the three things that we talked about, which is conversion of analog data into digital data, right? I mean, today you may have for example, at National PG College, suppose all attendance records are in manual registers, right? If you're able to automate, convert those registers into a digital format where attendance of people can be tracked, that becomes a digitization. Now, what extent of digitization is a different thing. Now, the second process, which is very, very important, is called digitalization, right? Now, what it says, the analog information under digitization that you have just converted into a digital format, right? It is to be used, it is information, such digital information will be used, for making complex processes easier and more efficient, right? You understood? Digitization is conversion of analog data into digital data. Digitalization is using that data that you have just digitized for improving your operation through process simplification, process optimization, and eventually cost reduction, right? Can you give me any example of, digitization, no brainer. If anybody who goes through first stage of digitization, you can give those examples, right? As I gave you about the attendance records of National PG College, right? Digitalization, can you give me any example in real, suppose a company, when do you say it is digitalized? Yeah.
So like we were calculating things manually and now we are calculating things on softwares and computers. That is digitalization. And we are putting our records in software form, that is digitization.
That's right, absolutely. So digitization is very clear. I'll go a little further in digitalization than what you said. Actually, if you use the digital data analog data that you have converted to digital data, you're able to use it for some process optimization, process simplification, cost reduction. You're using, like for example, a manufacturing company going for an enterprise resource planning solution like SAP, right? That is digitalization, right? Because data you converted into digital form, now you're using it to run your business processes, right? That's very, very clear, right? So I think that is called digitalization, right? Now, what is digital transformation? Digital transformation is far more transformative. It is far more radical. It is almost like rewiring the organization itself, right? Now, what does it mean, rewiring the organization? It means the fundamental rethinking of what my product should be, of how I should reach out to customers, what should be my value proposition, everything getting being considered from that perspective, right? So it's a fundamentally different way of thinking about business, right? When you go for an ERP like SAP in digitalization, it is not a fundamentally different way of doing it, right? There's a digital data available. You're using software for materials management, for procurement, for issuance, for all these things you are using it, right? You're doing financial accounting through ERP's F&A module and so on and so forth, right? Whereas in digital transformation, which is today's subject, it is a radically different way of designing the business itself. We'll give you some example. And when you rethink a radical, a fundamentally different way of designing business, you optimize the overall operations, you improve and enhance the customer experience, and eventually all this has to be focused towards increasing my return on investment, profitability and return on investments, right? Why do you do all this, right? Why do you make changes, keep making changes in your business model, right? Why do you keep reinventing the wheel and doing the business very differently from what you used to do, right? At the end of the day, in a business, because today what we'll cover will be from a business perspective, right? Because the students that you will prepare, that you're supposed to guide in through your respective subjects, right? They will go, majority of them will work in the industry, right? So my entire focus is from an industrial perspective. Although digital transformation can even be attempted in an educational institution, it can even be done in a hospital, it could be done in a municipality. Everywhere there is a scope for digital transformation. But today, whatever I'll cover, our entire focus would be on as I just said, on industry, right? So, it is essentially digital transformation is some kind of a rewiring of the organization. You completely rewire the organization, right? And how do you if it's a paper-driven organization, if you rewire, that will not become digital transformation, right? You have to use digital technologies to rewire the organization, right? That's very, very important, right? So what are the main aspects of it? That one is absolutely, technology all over the organization. Every walk of life about every aspect of the business will have something to do with the technology, right? It changes the way you operate, fundamentally changes the way you operate and deliver value to people, right? Very, very different, Even more importantly, it is a cultural shift. When you go for digital transformation in an organization, even a university or a degree college like this can go for digital transformation, right? So it's a cultural shift that almost forces the organization to continuously change and keep challenging the status quo, right? That mindset, digital transformation, deployment of technologies for redefining the product and services that you are delivering, and how do you deliver, how do you optimize, how do you reduce cost, how do you optimize the processes, how do you deliver the customer value, those are of course there, right? But important thing is that you have to challenge the status quo, right? Companies which have not challenged the status quo, right? What is the company that used to be in photography business? Kodak, right? When digital photography came into being, Kodak was ahead of the competition. Their R&D had completed the digital photography format, right? But their management did not implement that, saying it will eat into my existing business. What was the existing business? Of those film rolls, you remember? We have all, I don't know how many of you have seen, those film rolls which used to be, you put inside a camera and then they used to go for development and printing, right? Kind of a thing, right? So and they were leaders in that. They were leaders. They said, "Oh, it will eat into my business." They never did that. And where is Kodak today? Doesn't exist. Doesn't exist as a photography company at all, right? Nokia. Nokia is another. These smartphones, Nokia was not Samsung, not Apple. Nokia was the first to design the smartphones, right? Why they didn't do for a similar reason as Kodak, right? While Nokia has survived, they have not disappeared from the business landscape as Kodak, right? But Nokia is a pale shadow of what that company used to be once, right? And nowhere as compared to Apple and Samsung, right? Because they refuse to change. So in digital transformation, technology help will obviously take, otherwise digital transformation cannot happen. Technology help two ways. One is, or three ways. One is to redefine, to recalibrate the product or the service itself, right? The product or the service that, we'll give you examples of that, right? Shortly, right? But more importantly, you have to, one is the product change, other is the process change, and eventually, your outreach to the customer also changes, right? Today, you can retain in an era where brands are losing relevance with every passing year or even a few months actually. The only way to long last the romance between you and your customers is to keep on delivering value, right? Today, earlier people used to talk about customer satisfaction. Now that is not enough. You have to keep the customers in a state of delight. I think that's very, very important. You have to keep the customers in a state of delight, right? So I think I repeat that in digital transformation, the fundamental step, I mean, I may have talked about number of things, right? But the fundamental change is mindset change. What is that mindset change? That you have to keep changing this, challenging the status quo. Status quo meaning things will remain the way they are, right? You know, you have to challenge the status quo. No, there could be better way of doing business. Otherwise, you'll become the Kodak and the Nokias of the world, right? So, process. Let's talk about different aspects of what do you call it? Digital transformation, right? The first being the process transformation, right? The entire workflows, right? How does information travel from your faculty member to the head of the department to the principal or vice chancellor of the college, right? What is that process flow, right? Can you reinvent that process flow? Can you start thinking? Can you use cloud, right? Today, more and more people do not necessarily use big data centers and servers and client server technology and so on and so forth, right? More and more people are using web-based solutions, and those servers are not hosted inside your organizations. For majority of them, the servers are hosted on the cloud. Cloud meaning not the cloud that you see in the sky. Cloud are nothing but data centers, big data centers where the cloud service hosting companies have thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of servers, and those are utilized by different clients at different points of time, and they have disaster recovery sites also. At some place they will keep that data. Some other place they will keep on have a DR site in a different country, in a different zone on this earth, right? So very often the process transformation also uses artificial intelligence. Are you okay to go little beyond Dr. Soni? Is it okay to go beyond 12 because I will not be able to complete what I intend doing? What is the schedule for the rest of the day?
We have 2 more lectures. 12:15.
12:30, please.
Next session.
So can you want to have a tea break now? So there's a tea break also. You want to have?
You want to?
Can tea be served as they are sitting there itself? Or no, you have to get up.
We can do that.
बाहर है कहाँ पे serve होता है? अच्छा, so 5 minutes. Just get your teacups and we will start here only. 5 minutes.
Very fast.